Smashamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 246. I'm 10 episodes ahead. I'm just so excited. 246 of the GeoGearHeads. You know, very rarely, no, in fact, never have we ever had to reboot an entire episode of the podcast. So today, it's a monumental day in the history of GeoGearHeads because we're going to reboot episode 238 of the GeoGearHeads, the GPSR versus smartphone. Last time, Daryl's ISP suffered a fiber cut. I mean, that's big. We're talking air gap in the electron flow big.
Yeah, that was not fun. That took a lot of time to get straightened out, too. I didn't get any sleep that night.
Especially why is that?
Because I had to take this show, get it ready, what we had prepped, and up to the server, which meant, trips to coffee shops and all of that kind of stuff.
And you're there, you have to drink coffee. So you probably were drinking coffee until midnight.
I had to be sipping on that coffee to stay awake long enough for the upload to finish on that slow Wi-Fi. Because everyone else there was doing the same kind of thing.
Uploading podcasts?
Yes, uploading podcasts. Who knows? They might be uploading other images and videos.
It's kind of the maker space for podcasts that, once you get past 11:30 at night.
Yeah, and YouTube videos and, videos of dogs on skateboards. But we're glad
on
that
pianos?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some of those too. We're glad that both of our guests for that show are able to make it back today. First, we're going to start with the ever-squealing land monkey.
Hey there, how you guys doing?
I'm thinking we need to start a fund to resurrect your board.
Yeah. I had a donation of another board, but it didn't work. So I'm going to have to, at some point, splurge and just replace this poor guy.
Ooh. And then also Scott Burks.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing pretty well so far. I'm crossing my fingers because, believe it or not, I actually did have ISP issues this afternoon.
Of course, this is just a cursed idea, man.
I know. Idea. Okay, so here's the rules, guys. If my internet goes out again, that's it. We're not rebooting the show anymore. This topic goes into the graveyard and it's never coming back.
I'd love to see Daryl's blood pressure during the show.
This is what happens when you put me and Jay on a podcast together. This is what happens.
The internet implodes.
So you're saying I can't schedule the two of you together ever again?
No, that's independently they're fine. Together,
right, yeah.
Right. So we can do the show, but we have to have different contestants essentially.
Right. I think it's called Podcast Apocalypse, but I'm not sure.
Podocalypse.
Right.
Podocalypse.
There you go. Podocalypse.
Nice.
Ever since Sharknado.
Right.
Combining nouns together.
I'm getting podocalypse.com right now as we speak.
Hey, but at least we were smart enough to do the transition from Google Plus Hangouts on Air to the new YouTube Live Hangouts on Air a month ago. So we don't have that to deal with tonight.
So, Scott, is that going to be the new podcast you and I will do together?
Podocalypse. I can't say Podocalypse. Yes.
I would so listen to that one.
Yes.
If nothing else, just to hear him pronounce it.
Podocalypse.
Podocalypse.
Maybe that's the whole show, is just trying to pronounce that word.
Podocalypse.
With different music beds.
Right? There you go. There you go.
Well, Mr. Chris of the Northwest,
yes.
We actually had a question about that transition to YouTube Live.
That's right. So we had a question about getting our upcoming shows on your calendar in the post-Google Plus Hangouts on Air age. I don't know if that's going to, be able to be carbon dated anytime, but, we kind of get that as right now. Mm-hmm. Guess what? That's pretty easy. Head on over to the upcoming shows page. That's geogearheads.com/upcoming. to find the scheduled recordings. Click on the date to the left of your show, and you'll get the start time of the recording in your own time zone. Just under the clocks there's a link that will add that to your calendar. Then you'll have that reminder to head over to the YouTube channel for all these wonderful live recordings. And don't forget, you can also participate in our chat room. So you'll get a listing of all the upcoming shows we mentioned at the end of the episodes, and that great opportunity to send your questions, tips, tricks, and any old feedback you want on any of those topics.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm pretty sure that events are gone completely from Google Plus when they do the rollout of the new Google Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, that really annoys me because I loved having those because they tied into the calendar.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could get so much detail in the conversations there. So I think this is probably going to be the end of Google Plus for most of the people I know.
Well, I heard they were contemplating getting rid of Google Plus anyway.
Well, they're not getting rid of Google Plus. That's they've got some kind of, I think it's like an additional 3 years now that they've committed to keeping that platform going, but they're trying to reinvent it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like where they're going with it, but
Yeah.
we'll have to see.
A couple of weeks ago, I was forced to update to the new Google Plus. I held on to the old one because it was I felt easier to navigate.
Yeah, same here. And because when they first offered it, it didn't have the events option anymore.
Right.
And you continue to look at like the help and everything. There's no indication that events are coming back, and it actually says events are only available in the Android app.
Oh, really?
So, in other words,
Interesting.
it doesn't
bad
look
for
like they're
you.
coming back. Yes. Yeah. A key feature of the show is, and the show planning is now gone.
Uh-oh.
We got some feedback on the last episode from the One Radio. One link I didn't hear you mention was openmapchest.org. The site has maps for many areas. The map for the U.S. is OpenStreetMaps for the entire country. For me, that's great, and they are updated weekly. But I don't update it. But I don't update that often. The maps are formatted for the Garmin GPSR. I've loaded the USA map on my 60 CSX and 64S. The maps of the US is over 3 gigabytes, so it takes a while to load. On the 64, and I've heard on the 62, more than one map can be loaded on the SD card and selected as needed. I have a copy of Topo 2008 for some of the East Coast, but under Windows 7, the CD does not load. I can't build new maps. I like the topo to let me know when to detour to miss a hill valley when on the foot headed to the cache. Well, when on foot to head to the cache. But the OpenStreetMaps shows many trails. I live not far from the Maryland-Pennsylvania border, and many maps split on the Mason-Dixon line. So having the entire U.S. is only a problem if I want to cross into Canada or Mexico.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to be having that problem from Pennsylvania. At least, definitely not to Mexico.
No, but maybe Canada, if he got really lost.
Yeah. And, maybe he's going to hit one of those spring-loaded traps and go flying across the border.
Huh. Does he have to know the weight of an unladen sparrow?
Yes.
No. Okay.
If he doesn't, then he goes, for a free trip to Canada.
So, we have more. Now, free trip to Canada. Listen to you. It's
I'm just ignoring all this Canada bashing.
We love Canada.
Right?
I mean, they have some
Should
of the
start
best
acting
maple
like
syrup.
it then.
Hey, where else are we going to get good French fries?
Right?
And, I mean, their major export is maple syrup and Tim Hortons.
Oh, Timmy.
That's all right. We're all just sitting back with our feet up watching the gong show of your election.
And we all say amen, brother. Okay. Do you all remember Russ Atkinson?
Yes.
Of course you do. He's the author of the Cliff Knowles series and the GeoHeads Crypto Expert. Now, he emailed that his, get this, Behead Me book will be free this weekend, starting Saturday, but only on the U.S. Sorry, Land Monkey. U.S. Kindle version. Land Monkey's going to drive across the border on Saturday, grab it, and come back.
No, I'm going to phone up Cliff and have a little chat. We'll figure something out.
Because it's all that matters. That's why.
It's all the personal Canadian touch.
For those of you south of the 49th parallel, this weekend, that's your chance to go grab it for free.
So let's move into the actual meat of today's show now that we're like 10 minutes into it. And we're going to have Land Monkey arguing for the GPSR and Scott Burks for the smartphone. And for those of you who might not remember, we like both. You know, all of us use both. We're proponents for both. Each has its benefits and its disadvantages.
Yeah. I love my GPSR. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Garmin 450. Use it all the time.
I love my GPSR too.
Apparently this is over. Well, there we go.
Well, this is one of those perennial questions: is which is better, the GPSR or the smartphone? If you're only going to have one, which is the optimum device for cachers? So that's what we're going to try to argue today. And of course, we're not going to take it all that seriously. This is mostly for fun.
Land Monkey's taking it seriously.
Land Monkey takes it seriously,
which is why we should have a lot of fun and flip it. Let me do the GPSR and let him do the smartphone, because I know he's been studying for 2 weeks on getting ready for the GPSR.
I don't know if we want to do that to the Land Monkey. He might go crazy and start to...
Yeah, that's right. I can't even say it.
He might start flinging cables or something.
Right. All right, continue. Sorry.
All right, so Chris and I are going to take each of the 3 rounds and give them a score of 1 to 5. And at the end, we're going to tally it up and see who is the grand winner. So we're going to start off the debate, and Land Monkey will actually go first, arguing for accessing the caches. So we're talking about things like loading the cache information, viewing the actual caches, including reading descriptions and logs.
All right. So we ready to go?
Give it a shot.
All right. Well, first of all, I just wanted to clarify for both our esteemed judges and more importantly for our valued listeners, all of you there listening to the show, thank you, that this category I feel is a little poorly named for the purposes of an unbiased debate. But because I value all of your time, let's make sure that we're clear in our definitions and what we're talking about. So while the category is called accessing caches, I think what we're actually talking about is accessing cache information. If we want to talk about accessing caches and the criteria around that, and I'm certain we can all agree that accessing caches means actually getting to the correct location, no matter where that might be. We'll talk about that in later rounds where we get to more important parts of geocaching. However,
I thought we were talking about things like the Tupperware detectors.
Well, in that case, I think smartphones and GPSs are both out. Anyways, and then we're just talking science fiction. But, while GPSRs have traditionally been challenging to load cache information on, that has changed dramatically. And anyone using a GPSR with a reasonably simple workflow will find them not only simple, but extraordinarily reliable to connect, load, and go. However, that all said, I do want to give the caveat that if you're geocaching somewhere with cellular or Wi-Fi data services, it is most certainly easier and convenient to load your cache information onto your smartphone device. I'll concede that point anytime. And that may be the experience wherever you live in geocache. However, according to geocaching.com data, 20 to 25% of the geocaches you're going to be looking for in North America are in areas with no cellular data service. So this means that there is no cache accessing advantage to using a smartphone over a GPSR for at least a quarter of the caches you are going to be looking for. And given that people would probably rather find ammo cans in the forest and the mountains and the wild regions as opposed to micros and cedar hedges in the urban and suburban areas, I think this weights even heavier in favor of the GPSR over smartphones for loading data. Now, GPSRs have come a long way from the ones that made viewing cache descriptions and attributes and hints difficult to read. For most caches you're after, what information do you actually need? Well, of cachers surveyed to understand how much information they use when geocaching, the average response is coordinates, cache name, hints, last 4 logs, and about 25% of the cache description. All of this is readily available and easy to read from any geocaching GPSR. So while you can read much more information via the smartphone, that information is rarely used. Now, while we're also talking about usability of the device, I'll concede that in situations where the lighting is ideal, such as indoors, the use of a smartphone for reading logs and other type data is much easier than on a GPSR. And certainly there are some phones that are designed for better screen readability in the outdoors and various weather conditions, and you can buy accessories to improve those aspects of your phone. But all geocaching GPSRs are designed de facto for this as a rule and are better for outdoor use in all weather conditions, not just on a nicely overcast afternoon. So, in as far as accessing geocache information, the smartphone holds an upper hand in an urban caching environment in ideal weather conditions. But if you want to have a tool that's going to provide you the information you really need and usability in any situation, you're going to want to rely on a GPSR.
All right. Scott, your turn to speak for the smartphones.
Well, here's my issue is that he's admitting that the smartphone is better in urban locations. He's freely admitting that if you're urban caching, which, let's be realistic, probably over 60% of what cachers do in 2016 is urban caching, it's hard to say, hey, why should I invest in a GPSR when, most of them are going urban caching anyway. They're rarely in the woods. There's guys like me, guys like you, old schoolers that, are going to the woods. I prefer to go in the woods, but that's me. That being said, we're talking about accessing caching, loading cache information. You know what? I'm online. It's there. And if it's not there, I can offline it just as easy. You take something like Cachey, I can get offline maps, offline what they're not called, what's it called? What are they called now? Daryl, real quick. I'm conceding
the list. Hey, no helping.
I'm getting a list from that. So no, they're not called what they're used to called.
Pocket queries?
Well, they used to be called that. They're not called that anymore.
They're called lists now.
Yeah, they're called
lists.
lists.
They're called lists. Yeah.
So I still call them PQ. So, but I want to be correct. So Cachey can now download the lists. It can now download maps. In fact, coming up, I can't say everything because I'm a Cachey beta tester, but it is going to be extremely easier. Come Cachey version 2.0, extremely easier for offline maps. FYI. That being said, also, we're talking about the outdoors. I feel smartphones in this day and age are perfect. You get a waterproof cover on that phone. You get a life proof. You get an otter, and it's fine. I use them sometimes when I'm in the woods. Like I say, I prefer GPSR from in the woods, but I'm using my phone. I have no problems reading that phone whatsoever. It's fine. And then when it comes to what else we got here, reading descriptions and logs, to say that the smartphone is not the better machine is just stupid. I mean, you could view I can see on my smartphone from the first log to the last log to the most recent log, whether it's there or not. If you look at Cachey, again with Cachey, I can see everything. I can even see right there whether it's there or not. So to say that the GPS is silly. That's all.
All right, so I think I'm going to give the Land Monkey a 4 on the GPSR and the smartphone for Scott. I'm going to give you a 5. Chris, what's your ratings?
Well, I give the GPSR a 3 and the smartphone a 5 for those. For accessing caches.
So we're not allowing rebuttals here? We're just gonna...
No, not right now.
No rebuttal.
No, we'll tell you what. You can have your quick rebuttal, but it's not going to affect your answer.
Land Monkey took notes. He's ready.
Yes, he did.
If it's not going to affect the score, then there's really no point in a rebuttal. Is there, other than just the fact that I'm right? So let me just add 2 points as a quick rebuttal. First of all, are we talking about smartphones in general and the use of smartphones in general and GPSRs in general? Or are we talking about specific phones and apps and buying a phone and then buying accessories? If you want to talk about that, then you talk about GPSRs and other accessories you can use to make them more powerful and useful in the field. So I think if we're going to talk about generalizations, we should talk about generalizations. Absolutely, Cachey is a great app. Cachey on a brand new iPhone with an unlimited data package, you're in great shape. Not everybody has that. So if we're going to start to talk about specifics or additions or changing things, then we're moving away from the true nature of the debate, which is the technologies in general. Rebuttal done.
All right. Well, let's move on to the...
Wait, hold on a second. Wait,
okay.
hold on.
He needs to rebut the rebuttal.
So the fact of the matter is, you say not everybody has an unlimited data plan and not everybody has Cashly. That being said, no one has $700 to put towards a GPSR either, dude. So I'm sorry. The simpler way is the smartphone. Rebuttal done. Mic drop.
I have to say, a new smartphone costs that same price.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't. No one pays $700 for a smartphone.
Over time, they do.
Yes, they do.
If you're done, then you're a fool.
Depends where you live.
To finding of caches. So we're looking at viewing the caches on the map, the compass screen, logging the caches. We're going to squeak that one in here too, of course. Things like the tracks and the waypoints. So this is going to get a lot more complex, but try to keep your arguments a little short, guys, because
I'm going to lose this one.
we don't want to go too long.
Tracks and waypoint. All right.
So,
do we need
Scott,
a flashing light to show them when they're got 30 seconds left?
Yeah, we should have gotten the timer started, and I was planning on doing that too. So that's my fault. That's on me. All right, Scott, you're going to start this round.
You'll make me start the guy.
We're going to make you start. You already admitted you're the loser.
God, all right. Viewing on a map. All right, when it comes to a smartphone, again, very easy to view on a map. This is the same thing with readability. It comes in the same thing. I've had no issues with a smartphone in the woods, or again when you are urban looking at a map. I don't have any issues viewing anything on a map. I can zoom in, I can pinch, everything's good, everything looks fine. Compass wise. Compass on a phone, I gotta admit, leaves something to be desired, depending where you are, especially if you're in the city. But then again, if you're in the city and you've got large buildings, a GPSR, I think, is probably a little worse. So, but the compass it does its job. I use the compass on my phone personally. I use the compass rather than the map. So I find it works just fine. But if somebody's inexperienced with geocaching and with a geocaching app on a phone, a compass might be a little confusing. But other than that, I think it works just fine. Tracks, there are no tracks on the phone that I know of. I don't personally use it if it's there. So to me, that's kind of irrelevant. So GPSR has the up on the tracks. Although you can now with the new Apple, you can actually do a pinpoint on the Apple Maps on the iOS 10. And so it'll take you back. So in essence, it is tracks. It'll get you back to where you put your car. So that's one thing that's getting closer to it. The waypoints, it works the same way. Works really easy on. I use Cashly again, even on the other geocaching geocaching app, the official one, it works fine. On Cashly, it's really easy to do as well, and they work great. So to me, it's if you're going to choose one, why pay the money for the GPSR when you've already paid the money for the phone? Like Chris, done.
Whoa! Right. Why am I being involved in this? Nice shot, Scott.
All right, we're going to lock in our scores on that one. But I do want to mention there are a couple of the Android apps that do allow for the tracks.
I would have no idea.
Yeah, that is something I really, really would like to see on the iOS apps. Mm-hmm. But at this point, none have it. Hint, hint, Nick. Let's get that in the next version of Cashly.
Right? There you go.
And then we didn't really hit on logging. So let me have you do something on logging real quick.
On logging?
Yes, logging the cache.
Oh, well, it's really easy, especially if you're using Cashly. If you're like me, you're one of the cache who doesn't really put more than a copy and a paste. It makes it ridiculously easy because it's already preloaded. So I hit 2 buttons and I've logged my cache. So, but if not, it makes it really easy. If you know how to use a smartphone, you know how to log cache. It takes literally 5 minutes to do. So logging on a smartphone is a piece of cake where you actually can you even log on the newest GPSR? I don't even know. If not, I think you have to save it. Bring it up to geocaching.com and then do it if I'm correct. But you cannot even log on a GPSR.
We'll talk about the new GPSRs in a moment after Land Monkey gets his shot. So Land Monkey, talk about the GPSRs.
I would be delighted to talk about GPSRs. So by default, they display caches and other important geocaching waypoints and other such information with the same speed and reliability you're going to get on a smartphone. In fact, sometimes even faster if you are not relying on downloading the information as you go. In addition, GPSRs make the process of adding waypoints significantly simpler and more accurate. For instance, waypointing where you parked before you head into the woods, or keeping an accurate record of your path that you've taken to allow for safe backtracking. So here, clearly, the upper hand certainly goes to GPSR for both of those important tasks of setting waypoints and providing tracks, which can be life-saving tasks. In many, I believe we already said, about 25% of the caching areas, you'll be geocaching. Are there some smartphone apps that do this? Sure. Do all smartphone geocaching apps? No. Do all geocaching GPSRs? Yes. Therefore, score GPSRs 1, smartphone 0. All right, let's talk about the maps themselves. While there may be 1 or 2 apps that support this, layering of maps is not common on smartphones and geocaching apps on phones, whereas it is on GPSRs. Why is this important? Well, it can be a game changer for a real geocaching experience in the great outdoors. Many geocachers that I personally hike with and many that I've spoken with will install either Topo Maps or the OSM maps and then layer Northwest Trails on top of that, giving you a super accurate GPSR layout of trails to prevent unnecessary bushwhacking, or worse, heading out with a smartphone that has cached maps may turn out to have inaccurate trails. Now, if we're going to talk about compasses, cell phones, they do use the combination of magnometers, Wi-Fi, and cell towers, and they can be highly accurate in urban settings. However, we've already had this discussion about where you're going to spend your time. Yes, the majority of geocachers geocache in urban settings. The majority of geocachers also have 10 finds. Now, if we talk about real geocachers, they're not going to be always in an urban setting, and the GPSR will have a significant upper hand with its use of 3-axis magnometer directionality. So again, GPSR upper hand. If we're going to talk about logging, clearly it's easier to log a geocache on a smartphone. However, if all you're going to log is TFTC anyways, does it really matter what device you're going to use it on? So the question there really comes down to the quality of the geocaching experience and the information people are willing to share. Thank you very much.
All right. You want to touch on the tracks?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Sorry. I got lost in all the...
I certainly hope it doesn't affect my score that you're not paying attention, Daryl.
Are you done now?
Well, I got so enthralled with your logging argument.
That was it. Yes.
And you know what? Because I have the Oregon 750, which does do live logging to geocaching.com.
Right. Yeah, I knew. I wasn't sure if the new one actually did it.
I think I'm going to dock you a point.
Me?
Because that no.
Oh,
Land Monkey. Because that unit is so bad at logging. It's actually a detriment to the entire GPS.
I said not to do it off the GPSR, so you can't dock me a point for that.
This is a piece of cake. A piece of cake to log from this. Easy.
Yeah, it is. Simple. But yeah, the Oregon 750 does allow you to do the live logs. It just doesn't let you log anything.
Yeah. Well, I said they don't do it well. I said if you're going to log live, use a cell phone.
It's terrible. So
stop taking points away from me just because you have had a bad experience.
But I'm not going to give you full points because logging doesn't work as well from the smartphone as it does, or from the GPSR versus the smartphone. But Chris, why don't you give us your scores first?
You know, Daryl, there are just so many different topics, or, points in this one topic. Viewing on a map, the compass, the logging, the tracks, the waypoints.
So that's 4 points for GPSR, and then there's logging.
Yeah, that's true. But logging's a big one, because every geocacher who has those 10 finds has to log those 10 finds.
And do they?
In the field.
Not
do they log more than TFTC?
No.
What they log is irrelevant. It's logging. What they log is, it doesn't matter what they log.
It's not irrelevant if your log is gonna be crap anyways. Yes, it doesn't matter how you log it.
It doesn't. It's a log. All you need to do is log it. You can write whatever you want. You can put a period. I've seen a period.
I know.
Which you can also do on a GPSR.
Very easily. That doesn't make it right. Okay.
Thank you.
So
no, but which is easier?
Smartphone started this one off, so I give smartphone a 4 on this round. And I give GPSR a 4. I've got a tie, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm at the same point. I'm going for a draw because, you know, they each have their advantages.
I think it's a Canada thing.
Yeah, you know. But, yeah, Scott, the one thing that you probably could have said that would have flipped me would have been the satellite view.
Oh, the satellite view. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I am so addicted
See,
to
that's
the
what happens when
satellite
you don't have notes. You see that?
Yeah.
I'm still winning.
It's still winning.
You're still
Wow.
winning, but only by a hair.
Only by a hair.
Our current score is
I'm gonna
smartphone
beat him here, though.
9.
I'm gonna beat him in reliability. So
Okay, we're going to do that in a moment. But right now, our smartphone is leading at 9, and the GPSR is at 7.5.
Due to unbalanced judging. Yep.
I never said I was balanced. You've met me. I'm quite unbalanced.
Well, you see,
Chris,
Scott
remember where your Timbits come from.
Oh, yeah. I love
you can have him.
GPSRs.
Timmy Howes is like a poor man's Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, you did not.
Oh, I went there. Yes, I did. I did.
The
I
gloves have
absolutely
come
went
off,
there.
folks.
Went there. See if Timmy Howes' shirt on right now. Where's he going? For the record, guys, he just walked away.
I was going to remind both contestants to please keep it clean and on topic, but I can't.
Bert's
Land
your
Monkeys walked
jerk.
away.
I've had Timmy Howes. It's terrible. I've had it with Daryl.
I've had Dunkin' Donuts and it's sewage.
Not the coffee. The coffee is godlike. Godlike.
You obviously haven't gone to the one by me. Let's move
Anyways.
on. Let's move on to the next round. And you're going to kick it off, Land Monkey, with the reliability. So we're talking about the actual accuracy of the location, the batteries, and just overall durability of the units.
Right on. So GPSRs have been designed from their inception, from day one, for military use, for civilian use, to be year-round, outdoor used. You will not find a more reliable, accurate, and enduring platform to navigate you safely to the geocaches and back home again. Now, when it comes to accuracy, study after study, including a detailed one submitted to Daryl a couple of months ago by listener R. Regan, proves scientifically that the GPSR, the device designed and honed to work with multiple navigational satellite systems, is the most accurate. All right, now let's talk about battery. Sure, you can get the so-called smartphone batteries to last just as long as those in a GPSR if you add accessories to your smartphone, if you want to carry more weight than the phone itself. But I think we are just talking about the phones and not adding all kinds of things to the phones. So, granted, the smartphone provides you the option to cache in urban areas and multitask to include Munsies, Ingress, and other applications, other games you can play at the same time. But if you're out in the deep woods, if you're up a mountain, you're likely not going to have the data, and you're going to be using your data plan and battery at the expense of your long-term safety. So really, when it comes to the battery, the smartphone easily has the upper hand. You can readily just replace rechargeable batteries into the the GPSR has the upper hand. You can readily replace the batteries into the device, and it's very common to get those rechargeable batteries or alkaline batteries if you need to. Now, can you protect your smartphone from the elements? Yes, you can. To the same degree that is natively inherent in a GPSR, no, you can't. If you want to render it almost unusable in plastic cases, screen protectors, and Ziploc bags, yeah, go ahead. And then you can add all kinds of stuff to make your smartphone almost as reliable and durable as a GPSR. So let me give you a quick case in point. On a geocaching hike this spring, about a 20-kilometer loop around a lake in the rain, the GPSR outlasted the smartphones hands down. Regrettably, one of our friends actually had their phone succumb to the elements and was not able to be recovered. The phone users on that hike put their phones away and relied on the more trustworthy GPSRs for the majority of that hike. And why? Because GPSRs are more reliable, accurate, and durable in any and all conditions. So if you're a real enthusiast, a real geocacher, the only platform worth relying upon for a great adventure worthy of memory and telling your grandchildren about is the platform originally used and still working and continually being improved, the GPSR.
How do I follow that? Can
You can just concede now. I'm okay with that.
Underneath that, when it goes live, I want when you cut the story, I want music underneath that. All right, please, if you can.
I want the Canadian national anthem.
Music, yes.
Maybe the Canadian flag flapping in the background.
All right, I'm going to try to follow that. Here we go. Accuracy. We're gonna start with. See, here's the thing with Land Monkey is he's talking about a GPSR and he's talking about it like people are out there hiking and stuff like that. It's not for geocaching. When I'm geocaching, accuracy. I use a GPSR a lot of the times. I hit 0 on my GPSR. I look down and there's the cache. I don't want that. I got 2 words for you: geosense. All right. Some people like to use that. Some people like to at 30 feet shut it down. Let's look for the cache. That's part of the fun. The fun isn't finding it. The fun is the hunt. That's the fun of this game that we play. If I want accuracy, I'll look for something. I want to find it. So accuracy, I think, is irrelevant in this thing because while it gets me close to it, I don't want it zeroed out. I really don't. Come the battery. Obviously, a GPSR is easier. It takes alkalines. It takes rechargeables, and you can just pop them in and out really easy. But with the next these days, with a cell phone, you have external batteries that aren't very big. They're not very. It's not this huge heavy thing. It's not heavier than my phone, I could charge my phone twice with one battery that I have. So I'm getting hours and hours and hours and hours off of this one battery. So while it may be easier with a GPSR, it doesn't mean it's better because I can get the same thing with an iPhone battery or Android. Durability. Again, I've said it before, a life-proof case, an OtterBox. I'm sorry, life-proof case, dude. There's nothing you can't say anything. Rain, dust, dirt, whatever you want to do. Snow, it's not affecting it. I've had one for years. It doesn't touch it. I've thrown this thing on the ground. Does nothing. Doesn't affect the phone at all. So durability, when it comes to what your debate with durability, with a GPSR, fantastic? Absolutely. I love my GPSR. It's durable as hell. But my phone with a life-proof case on it, I would throw that thing on the ground in a heartbeat without even thinking twice about it. So durability, I think, if anything, it's a draw. I don't think if you have a life-proof case, you have an OtterBox. I don't think you're going aside. If your buddies are out there in the woods with a regular case with an iPhone case on there, then they should. Yeah, they deserve to have their phone ruined. You should know better. You go into the woods with an iPhone, you better have an OtterBox. You better have a life-proof on that thing. So I'm done.
All right, Chris, lock in your score. Before we move on to some comments, Land Monkey, you have any last-minute rebuttals on that one?
Just that I feel very sorry for anybody who wants to go out in the woods with a smartphone.
All right, and in the chat room, I almost called it the live Q&A, but that's now dead. Thank you, Google. Wet Coaster says that Dunkin' Donuts are terrible, so 2 out of 2 Canadians agree.
God, of course.
But he also says that caching extreme cold and midwinter, the guys I was caching with had all their smartphones die and relied on his GPS. And that's one thing that I will say in favor of the durability of a GPSR. If you don't have a touchscreen and have those buttons, that is the best device when you're in the cold winters. You can use it with the gloves.
I believe I did say all weather conditions.
Yes. Oh, okay. Here's one thing we do have to mention too in favor of the smartphones. They do better with raindrops on the screen than Garmin's touchscreens. Unless you have the old capacitives. The old capacitives were awesome.
Okay, but if we're using Scott's...
I had a 450. I didn't have any issues with...
if we're using
because that has the capacitive, not the resistive, not the capacitive, sorry.
If we're using Scott's methodology and I can use any particular model and any particular accessories that I want to support my argument, then you can't use the touchscreen GPSRs against me.
Hey, we've already locked in the scores. Don't worry. These are comments.
Wait, are the scores locked in already? The scores are
locked in.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Well, then, obviously, the GPSR hands down beats the smartphone. I mean, come on. Who the hell would do that? You got to be an idiot to do that. That being said, I had to defend, but, like, come on. Be realistic. I'm not going to argue with you, Land Monkey. I mean, Jesus. Come on.
Now, Land Monkey, Team Mavju says that you should get maps instead of a phone because it also saves on the batteries. And
that was directed towards Scott, by the way.
It was, yes. Yeah. I realized that as I was reading it.
What was it again? What did it say?
With free maps, annotatable. The actual physical maps get physical maps instead of paper maps.
I think that was based on Scott's concept of that he doesn't want to be taken to the cache location. So
right.
Just use a map.
Come on, that's a good defense. That's all I had. That's all I had.
A sextant.
It's all I had, man. GeoSense. It's all I had.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think GeoSense is one word, not two.
Is it?
It is. Yes.
It might be hyphenated in some cases.
2 words in my world.
It's not a real term, so it's it's open for interpretation.
So I go anyway. All right,
exactly.
It goes both ways.
Precisely. All right, and I would want to mention too that the new flagship phones are all IPX67, so the durability has drastically improved on the smartphones. But I still wouldn't want to drop any of these, GPS or smartphone, on a rock. No. I have seen many GPSRs eat it thanks to the rocks.
Really?
Yes. Especially the Oregon series, the 600s, because they don't have that lip anymore. We're getting trashed. And if you have the touchscreen, that's the mark of death.
I really think you shouldn't be dropping any electronics on rocks.
No.
So, I mean, maybe that's just not a good category for...
Daryl, maybe we need to stop doing that.
Hey, I've never done
Here's a thought.
Damn thing.
One thing for Land Monkey there, to prove how durable the GPS is underwater, we actually had a cacher who dropped his GPS off the ferry dock in Mackinac, and the next morning he came in there and the screen was still lit.
Wow. Really?
Underwater.
So it was underwater for like 12, 24 hours or something?
For about 8 hours or so, I guess.
Wow.
But
and we're not talking a mud puddle.
And you can't get it because it's like under the boat dock,
right.
There's nothing.
That's tragic.
Yeah. You see it's calling out to you saying, help me.
It was one of the old E-Trexes. Don't
forget it. Let it go. All right. Never mind.
All right.
Lanyard people. Lanyards.
Chris.
Yeah.
Yes. No kidding. Chris.
Which is why I have a lanyard, because if I lose it, if I don't have it around my neck.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. But people with the smartphones.
I've heard that about you, Scott.
With the smartphones, no one ever seems to use anything. It's just always in your hand or like in a pocket or something.
Well, yeah, I don't lose my smartphone, but
no,
like my
and
GPSR, I'm notorious.
Your whole life is in that smartphone. You just
right,
protect it. The GPS, you just kind of tend to forget it.
I left my GPS on an island once. Island. I remembered it as we were putting the canoe away. I'm like, where's my GPSR? Yeah.
That's a $500 mistake. You never.
And it was still running.
No, I went back and got
the batteries last forever.
I got back. I went and got it. That's a $450.
But how could you find it without the GPS?
My phone.
It's a good thing you had a backup system.
Yeah, it's always good to have the two, no matter what. But Chris, what were your scores this round?
GPSR started this off, so we'll start there. And clearly, GPSR in accuracy, durability, and the third topic, battery. Thank you. And that all important. Sorry, I moved to the scoring. It gets a 5.
Ooh, wow.
Now, Scott.
Yes, sir.
I like you.
Thanks.
But let's talk about smartphones.
I really like you.
In this, I don't believe you. You're pandering for a vote. Everything you described was an add-on to the phone.
Okay.
More battery, more protection. I have to give smartphones a 2 in this category.
Really, a 2?
A 2.
Wow. That's cold, man.
Eat it, Burks.
I kind of went the same route, but not quite as bad.
Thanks, Daryl.
I gave the GPS a 5 and the smartphone a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, we're looking at the GPSR as the winner with a 12.5 and the smartphone close runner-up at 11.5.
Wow. You know why Chris did this? Because he's his partner on the other podcast. This is like nepotism.
Wow, that sounds like sour grapes to me, really. As somebody who just couldn't win
Scott,
legitimately, and then after all that bragging.
Yes, Chris.
I did go through just to see what would happen if I changed my vote to a 3 with smartphone.
Right.
GPSR still wins by half a point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So even if I said, well, maybe,
Fair.
Land Monkey, aren't you holding that upside down?
No.
It doesn't matter. Does it really matter? Doesn't matter.
Hey, easy there, big guy.
What are you gonna do about it, punk?
All right. Before we actually take off, we got some
Take off, eh?
questions
Sorry, couldn't help that.
from
Exactly.
one of our
Couldn't resist that.
listeners.
Ooh, questions. I like questions.
Yeah. So, Chris, why don't you read that first part of the email, the first question?
Sure. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm going to go with La Gente, La Ancha. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Laantje.
Wow.
Okay.
I'd go maybe with Lante.
Okay.
I could have phonetic that
How
for
about the
you.
question?
Yeah.
Oh, the
We're
question.
not going to bother with the question. We're just going to debate the.
No, let's go back. Let's go back to the name.
We're gonna figure out this name. I don't know.
Okay, so now that the weather's getting better, the sun is shining, it's harder to read the smartphone screen, especially with sunglasses. So during caching, I don't wear sunglasses, so I can read the smartphone screen. Do GPSR screens have better brightness and contrast so you can clearly see everything even with sunglasses? Is there a significant
contrast and brightness, but that's
Is there a significant difference in brightness and contrast between GPSR models so that it may influence my choice for a GPSR? And he says, I'm especially interested in the GPS Map 64 and the eTrex 30X. Compare the on-screen readability with sunlight and sunglasses.
Well, the first thing I'd say on that is no color LCDs work well with polarized sunglasses.
yes.
Yeah, we
So-
all learned that one.
Yes, never use polarized sunglasses. You will pay for that dearly with your vision.
I don't even know if the unit's turned on.
Well, I've had a lot of those. I can see it's turned on,
Oh,
but I
okay.
can only see by that little band that looks like your screen's cracked or whatever.
Yeah. It's unfortunately I have light sensitive eyes, so I mostly wear polarized sunglasses.
Ooh.
So what GPSR do you use, Scott?
I have a 450.
And it works well with your polarized sunglasses?
No, I don't wear sunglasses if I use it.
Oh.
I have a cap that I bring the rim. down.
But is it
So,
any
do
different
this a
with
lot
your
if I have to.
smartphone? And which smartphone are you using currently?
Me?
Yeah.
I have an iPhone 6.
And is it any better or worse with sunglasses?
No, just as bad.
Yeah. So there's no real difference.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
polarized. Yeah, we're talking polarized here.
Right. Now with the unpolarized glasses, my iPhone 6, the 62, because I have the 62, the eTrex 30, and the Oregon 750 are all right about the same. I really don't notice much of a difference. Without the sunglasses, then the GPS screens are definitely easier to see.
It sounds like something Daryl's gone out and tested.
I have.
Of course he has. What are you questioning this?
But I will admit, I didn't really look at it too closely until I got this question in.
There you go. So
Interesting.
to add in on that, I'm an Android user and I've got an eTrex 30, and on both of them you can adjust the brightness and all those kind of settings. But I would have to say that it is actually easier to adjust that on my GPSR than it is on the phone, but it can be adjusted on both without too much trouble.
Well, and one of the
Well-
things I found is that the brightness on the GPSRs doesn't seem to have the impact that it does with the smartphones.
Absolutely.
Battery-wise,
I'd agree
yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
One of the
So
also
most
one
of
of
the
the
time I don't turn it up very much, but a lot of that is the color quality of the GPSR screens, and we are talking about all color screens here.
Yeah.
If you have the black and white screens, that makes a huge difference.
But it's
black
really
and
just
white screens-
contrast.
Right, and those work better, in sunlight because it's just on off kind of thing. But
Yeah.
with the color screens, the units that the GPSR units are using what used to be called transflective. I think they might have changed it so it's not technically transflective anymore, but they're built to be used in the sunlight. So they're better at that, but they're worse at the color. Right? They don't have that white background. It's like an off-white-ish because it's reflecting the light back up rather than a big backlight. So it's a difference in the screen technology. They're lower resolution in order to get some of that brightness. So you're making sacrifices to get that better look. But I will say, based on my testing with the eTrex 30 and the 62 definitely is a little bit more readable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really that much. So I don't think you're going to see a huge difference between those. So pick the unit you like otherwise, I think. Then with the Oregon 750, that I really think that's less readable in the sunlight than my 450 was when I had a 450, but I don't have that to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So I can't really say for sure.
450 is pretty good. I mean,
yeah, the 450. The problem that I had with the 450 was the glare because of that resistive touch screen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, it's a plastic layer.
It's literally it's just a dip of your hand, you know, and it's clear. It's not like
right.
It's not like blinding or you know, it's very frustrating. It's just knowing, you know, it's the quick shift of your wrist and it's fine, you know. And I also noticed that when I'm caching, you know, like I said in the debate, if I'm in the woods, it's usually when I pull out my GPSR. I don't pull it out when I'm urban caching. That being said, 9 times out of 10, there's a canopy over me when I'm caching in the woods as well. So the sunlight really isn't, I find really isn't that much of an issue, at least in Illinois. I can't speak for other, you know, places, but in Illinois, most of the forest has canopy. You know, it's not, you're not out in the element, out in the sun, you know, so or if you're there, it's, you know, flipping between one canopy to the next kind of a thing. So it's so to me, the sunlight really, you know, like I say, not wearing sunglasses really isn't that much of an issue for me, you know.
Yeah, I guess it depends where this guy's the person who sent this question and where they're from and where they're planning to cache. Yeah, I think if the key factor between making your choice on models is going to be the readability of the screen, I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of fairly even. I would say, and I think this is what you guys were getting at earlier, maybe, you know, consider some of the other criteria that might be more important, like antennas and battery life and things like that.
Obviously, and cost. Obviously, I mean,
cost.
Yeah. I mean,
well, and every generation of the smartphone as well is getting better at the readability outside. They're also playing with some different screen technologies that might or might not impact that, like the OLED and what's the other one that I can't remember the name of? AMOLED. So, yeah, the smartphone that you got last year is probably going to be less readable than the smartphone you might get this year. And we do replace our smartphones usually more often than GPSR.
Yeah. So you get a new one every year? Wow.
No.
It's an American thing. It's
usually every 2 years.
I still use my S3.
Yeah, 2 years is apparently the standard in North America for changing.
It's about 2 years.
Yeah. I think I'm going to skip the S7 though because they explode.
Right.
Yes. Well, no, the Note 7, not the S7.
Yeah, the Note 7.
They don't explode. They
burst into flame.
Thermite.
I've had my GPSR. I've had GPS for 6 years now. I think I got it Note in 10.
Because you don't have to replace them.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
That's great.
Your GPSR is going to be a longer term investment, so consider that. Oh, yeah. But if the only reason he's looking to replace the smartphone, or well, I shouldn't say replace, but to get a GPSR is for the readability outside, I'm not sure he's going to be happy with that purchase. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Good point.
Yeah, so it might be better off to save the money and put it toward a better smartphone in the future. And if you're looking for that durability, there are some Android phones that are really built for the durability. We've talked about things like the Caterpillar branded ones that really take the beating, and those are definitely built for outdoor viewing.
But again, that being said, if this cacher who asked this question, if you're going to spend a majority of your time in the woods, or you're planning on going into the woods, get a GPSR. I mean, I can't fight that. I mean, it's
or on the water.
Or on the water, absolutely, yeah. Or on the water, yeah. Get it. It's worth the investment. It really, really is. You know, I mean,
they go on to ask some questions, and I'd like to pose these questions to you two, and see how you answer them. He says, so what's the difference in information about the caches on GPSRs versus the smartphone? He uses CGeo on Android, for example. He wants to know, does the GPSR show a cache's web page?
Not on CGO. It shows the information, and you can then go and open the web page, but not natively in CGO.
What about on a GPSR?
Well, of course not.
No.
Well, it will show the cache descriptions, and
Right.
if you're using something like iCaching or GSAC, there are macros that will actually load the images onto the newer Garmin units, so you can still have the images. However, my experience with playing with that, don't even bother because they're useless.
Yeah, why would you need the web page? I mean,
Earth
I know
caching,
this is-
I can guess maybe. I can't think of any
for
other
the puzzle
example.
caches. I've had puzzle caches where you need that image because that is the puzzle.
You mean
In the field?
What should you be doing? That was my question. Like, shouldn't you be doing
Sure.
that at home
No,
rather than in the field?
one of the first puzzle caches we actually did was called PIC, P-I-C, Tour. PIC Tour. And it gave you a block of 9 photos all in one, and then a list of descriptions. So you had to find those 9 locations.
There's one like that in Astoria. I've done.
And it sounds like there's more and more of those coming. So in those cases, in way back then, I had to print it. I actually printed it on photo paper because,
Oh my god! Of course you did.
I tried printing it on a sheet of regular paper with the old inkjet printer, and boy, you couldn't read that at all. So that was pre-smartphones. This is 2005, 2006. So
but I guess I'd ask the
that
question, why do you need to look at the cache's webpage? I would think what you want is the cache description,
Right.
except for the
Right.
rare instances like Daryl's bringing up where you want to see images, etc. In which case, have your smartphone in your back pocket or,
Right.
whatever you're going to do. And I think we're probably going to answer this on every one of these questions. Scott and I are going to agree. Have both.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to, like, if you want to read the logs, you can only go 5 back. So if I want to go further than 5, I pull up my iPhone and I look. It's like as Lammogi says, it's the correct. It's the answer for everything. Is you should. I mean, everyone has their phone on them unless you're leaving your phone in your car. You're gonna have your phone in your back pocket, or I put mine's in my backpack.
Or
so
if you're crossing a country border, that could always be an issue.
Well, but then that's more of a question of being prepared, because you're either, whether you're using a GPSR or a smartphone, if you're doing something where you either know you're going to go out of data or you're going to cross a border where you're going to lose data, you can download all that data down to the smartphone, all the cache information and,
Right.
20 logs or whatever. That can all be done. And just on the topic of logs, I want to bring up, please, people, start writing useful logs, because if everybody wrote a half decent log, then you wouldn't need to go back 20. You could only need to go back 2 or 3. You'd still get what you need.
Okay, so the next point he asks about is hints, decodable hints. Are they viewable on the GPSR?
Yes.
Waypoints?
of course,
Easy on the GPSR and on the smartphone.
yeah, easy on both.
Corrected coordinates? Oh, I'm sorry, Daryl. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and just for clarification, we are talking about the newer Garmin units. He's specifically asking about the GPS Map 64 and the eTrex 30. So this is talking about really anything from the Oregon series up, including even the Colorado series, which I don't think anyone really even uses anymore.
Oh God,
So we're going to get like those 1 or 2 emails. I still use my Oregon or my
the
Colorado.
Colorados. Wow.
So as an
basically
eTrex
anything
30
from
user, I can
2008 newer.
Yeah.
But I mean, as an eTrex user, I can answer these definitively, right? I mean,
Yes. Yeah, but I just want to make it clear that we're not talking about like the old GPS Map 60.
Fair
We're
enough.
talking the 62, the 64.
Was that the best
72.
GPS though? Come on.
I still
things
know
are
a number
rock.
of people who use
The
them.
rock.
And so many smartphone cachers I know keep the 60 around because it is rock solid.
Good. Dude, it's in my glove box right now.
Yeah, and
It's a
I
rock,
know
man.
I know so many Oregon users who have had this issue, and even some of the newer eTrex users, where something gets corrupted in the field, and their whole unit is bricked until they get home.
Yeah.
You never really hear that with the 60.
Doesn't happen with the 60.
No.
Just the best. Yeah,
So,
it really is.
Good point too. One of the things that we didn't mention last week on the show about, or 2 weeks ago on the maps, it's a really good idea to have your maps on the card, because if your maps get corrupted, which we've seen happen a lot around here, you can pull it out and continue to use your GPS without the maps, but at least you can continue to use it. You don't have to go and hook it up to a computer.
Yeah.
Fix it.
I would say if you're doing a hashtag geocache road trip, that you take a laptop or a computer that you can download new maps if you have to, but you have them on the hard drive. You have an external hard drive with your backup maps, and you have two SD cards.
Always bring that laptop with, man. That's just the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. And
laptop.
One of the best things really is not to hook up the GPS to the laptop, but to just plug in those cards.
It's quicker.
Swap the cards. It's so much faster and doesn't have as much room for error.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's keep going down.
Okay. So the next one he asks is photos. Can you see photos on a GPSR?
If you download them.
You can,
kind of.
but why would you if you've got a smartphone?
Right.
Okay.
But you could. You could download them.
Technically, you can.
Yeah. Yes.
Logs?
Well, 5, I think, right? Mine
usually
shows
5.
Yeah, the default I think is 5, but if I remember, you can configure that. But
you're going to use up memory for what?
Yeah, and when you're on the GPSR, memory is a little bit of a premium. But if he's talking about these units, you're not really going to have a problem unless you start trying to load, thousands and thousands of caches.
Right. And you got to remember that's the last 5 from the PQ, not live. So if you download the PQ 3 weeks ago in anticipation for this trip, those logs could be out of date. This guy could have archived it 3 days ago. You have no idea. Yeah.
And the last one he asked about is logs of friends, and he says, "I think this may be unique to CGO."
It is.
That's CGO. Yeah, that's a CGO.
I don't know if any other apps do that. Definitely CGO does, which is handy at times.
Jesse loves it. Yeah, Jesse loves it. Yep.
Well, and one thing that why that's unique to CGO is that CGO is not using the live API.
Right.
So they're able to do some stuff that the live API apps don't have access to, but it's also one of the ways that people use to get themselves banned.
Well, I think the logs of friends is pretty easy as long as your friends have found the cache, within the last 5 finders. So then that works out well. Just, follow a couple days behind them and you've got all their logs.
I love it. In the chat room, though, Wet Coaster mentions that intercaches, you need to have web access. And another good point is none of the current Garmin units, and the Garmin units were the only ones that ever supported Where I Go, but none of the current Garmin units will support Where I Go.
What about Chirps? What about Chirps?
Chirps is only available on the Garmin units.
Right, yeah.
But have you ever found a Chirp cache?
Well, many, sure.
Yep.
See, I've never found one.
Last week, I found one last week.
Daryl, you got to come out and go caching with us.
I found a couple of the Chirp-enabled caches without using the Chirp because the Chirp never worked.
Really? Works
great. Sad.
Yeah, and the worst part is these were ones that had been out for less than 3 months.
Wow.
Well, but to your point, there's way more intercaches and Where I Goes than there are Chirp caches. If you're going to look at that, then smartphone. And again, back to what Scott and I have been saying, just bring both.
Yeah, this is really what we're saying. I think overall is it's great to have both. I mean, there is no real one or the other. I think you certainly can do it one or the other, but for optimum caching, you got to carry 2 devices.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's also what depends. If you're 95% urban, then a GPSR is it worth it?
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad, pathetic caching.
I'm pretty 50-50. Depending on winter, I'm maybe 70-30. Urban to woods, but you get in the summertime, sometimes I'm 60-40, 70-30 woods. Lately I've been woods. I've been all about the woods. So.
Way to go.
When we were talking about the accuracy, I don't think we had the I don't think we had the discussion about how the smartphones use the Wi-Fi to help narrow down the error rate. So when we're in Chicago, the better the GPSR, the worse its location was. So those units that had the nice quad helix antennas that are usually like right on, they were like 5 miles away. That wasn't that bad, but they were, I would say, anywhere from half a mile to a quarter of a mile off. The like the E-Trex was much more accurate because it didn't have that high sensitivity antenna. Well, it's still a high sensitivity, but it's not as high sensitivity as like the 62 was. So it was a little bit more stable. But with the smartphones, we were only about a block off. None of them were right.
A block.
The block is a big difference.
Daryl, when we did Vampire Empire, that cache underground, which we did just about a year ago. Jessie just found it on her time hop. That we just did that.
I thought that was 2 years ago.
No, was it? Jessie, was it a year ago or 2 years ago? Vampire Empire. Oh, she doesn't know.
Oh, that was an awesome cache, by the way.
Whichever it was, yeah, great cache in Chicago. Whatever it is, it's in the Pedway underground. Just a whole city under the city of Chicago.
Wow,
Pedway.
cool.
It's pretty cool. And so did we? Well, but we found a bunch of caches on that trip. On when you came and visited, did we use the GPSR at all on that trip? And I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just curious. I'm trying to remember. No.
No. That was entirely smartphone.
Okay. And then when you came for geocaching day, did we use GPSRs that day at all? I know I didn't.
We actually had GPSRs with us, but we didn't use them except for I think 1 or 2 caches toward the end of the day.
Okay.
When we had more than one crew with us.
The point is we did fine.
Sure.
My point is to this cache who asked this question is that like if you are mostly urban, you're gonna do fine with a phone. But if you want to get into the woods, it's not worth risking the phone. I mean, but if you're only gonna do it once in a while, is it worth that investment? That's what it comes down to. If you got a couple $100 to, throw to burn, get one. You'll love it. I mean, like I say, you would have to pull that Garmin out of my hands. I love my Garmin 450. I don't want to upgrade. Yeah, I love my Garmin 4. Until that thing dies, I'm going to use it. And
it still supports Where-I-Goes.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's the last unit that did.
Love it.
Or no, there was I think the 550 did as well. But one thing that we didn't really talk about was hiding the caches, and you can get good coordinates off of a GPS or off a smartphone. It just takes you can. It just takes some practice. You have to have the GPS live. You have to get the multiple readings, just like you used to have to do with the E-Trex.
Right.
So which one?
How bad the E-Trex was?
Yeah.
Back in the original, yeah. You never got the same chords twice from those. So it's the same kind of thing. It takes some skill. You can do it. But if you're going to go through all that work, take the GPSR and use that too. And I hate to say it though, the last several caches I've placed, the smartphone has been right about the average, as long as I keep the GPS hot, right about the average of the 3 GPSRs I carry with me when I do that. Because I actually
carry 3 GPSRs
when I'm hiding a cache, I take the 3 GPSRs because none of them are ever right.
I actually asked why. Of course you do. What?
Yes.
I even ask why. Sorry, I apologize for asking why on that. Yes.
But I always take an average all of those together because none of them are ever right.
And again, that being said, you should still, even with the GPSRs 3, and even with the smartphone, you should still go into Google Maps and just double check it and tweak as necessary.
Yeah. Now, Google Maps isn't always 100% accurate, so don't rely on that.
Of course it's not.
No. It is going to be a little bit off, but that will tell you if you have big errors.
Right.
And
when it's 80 feet off instead of 5.
Or you could put a useful hint in.
Right. Yes. But I've actually hidden a couple of the caches on the Google Maps. And the sad thing is, they were the ones that people commented the chords are right on.
Right. Yeah.
And I did it mostly as an experiment to see how off Google Maps was.
But here's the thing, though, really quick, is that while you have... I've been out where I've been in the woods and I've had my GPSR and just been dancing, doing that geo dance we all know. And then I'm like, you know what, F this. And then I pull out my phone and boom, it takes me right to it. So it's that. I think it's the, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the extra antennas that it's pulling that's giving me that better signal?
The extra radios, yeah. So it's
right.
The cell phones have always an idea of where they are based on the towers. So that
it's
narrows you down
triangulated.
right away. Yeah.
It doesn't
So it
happen all the
always knows
time,
right
but it
where
does.
it is.
It does occasionally happen where I'll have to
Sure.
like, just say screw this and pull out the eye.
And as long as you got service, that works great, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what really is the best thing with location on the smartphones, though, is the Wi-Fi, because it maps. Well, I shouldn't say it. You know, both Google and Apple map all of the locations of all of the access points they can find. So whenever you get within range of a Wi-Fi hotspot, you know, of an access point of any type, chances are it's been mapped. It recognizes its MAC address and says, okay, I know this unit is near here, so the phone must be near here. And it will pop to that location and try to use the GPS to get even more accurate. So that's how that works so quickly. You know, if you turn off a GPSR and turn it back on, you know, halfway across the country, it's going to take it a little while to find where you are.
For sure.
Sure. And the smartphone is going to pop up really quick as long as it has signal, and even quicker if it has a Wi-Fi signal to help it out.
And has there ever been a definitive answer on whether or not battery life affects the accuracy of the GPS? Like if a battery's near being dead, like if you have one bar on your GPS.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going.
I don't know if it's just a fluke or not.
There are some battery save options on some units.
Mm-hmm.
If you have those battery save options enabled, it slows the refresh. So instead of checking every 30 milliseconds, if that's what it would be, it would stretch it maybe to 120 milliseconds. So it is going to be less accurate. It is going to be less frequently updated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that's probably working. Is it's trying to save the remaining batteries, and the smartphones will do the same thing.
Oh yeah, oh totally.
And on the smartphones, you usually don't have a choice.
Yeah, Jesse's Android is notorious for it. Yes, she gets under 30%. Forget it. It's like the GPS is useless. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's on the S6, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that one does have a setting to disable the power save mode. So that should keep it from going bad as quickly.
I think she does that when she notices it happening. She does do that. Yes.
So it puts it into a higher power mode, which means you are going to kill that remaining battery. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but it doesn't seem like any of these batteries have anything close to what they say they have left at the end.
That 30% over there.
That 30% goes faster than the first 30%. Yeah. Kind of like the gas gauge on a lot of cars. You know what? I'm going to mention one thing because this just happened to my nephew this weekend. His phone blinks out at about 8 or 9%, just dies because the battery goes dead.
Sure.
Most smartphones have a calibration cycle where you have to charge it to 100%, pull the plug, drain it to absolute zero where it shuts itself down, plug it in, and charge it to 100%. Do not interrupt that cycle. If you do, it can't calibrate. But doing that and letting it charge to 100% where it actually says it stopped charging, you'll look for the little charge icon, and it will usually change to a little plug icon. That's how it's going to calibrate to know what its battery is actually doing. Most smartphones are pretty good about that, so you're not going to see it often.
Well, we used to do that with laptops too. You don't have to do it anymore. But
you still have to do that, but it's not as frequent. They've gotten so much better about measuring this stuff than they used to.
Yeah,
but occasionally you still have issues.
Old laptops used to do that.
Yeah. Oh, the older lithium ions were terrible about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, we have gone a really long time. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, maybe even learned a little bit during the show. But both Scott and Land Monkey, thank you so much for joining us. Scott, tell people where they can find you.
Everyone can find me on the Geocaching podcast, which is every Wednesday night, and the What's Up Internet podcast with Mark Dowding. That's the 15th and the 1st of every month.
Unless you get dental work.
Unless I get dental work.
Yes, except for this month.
Well, no, I think we're going to do it tomorrow. So it'll be a little late.
So it will be the 16th.
16th, yeah. Yes.
All right, Land Monkey, where can they find you?
Oh, I'm just all over the internet. But you know what? Every Thursday night after this podcast on cashingnw.com, Caching in the Northwest, I join Chris of the Northwest and Wits End. We do another great podcast. And then if you want to just find out more about Land Monkey and Mrs. Land Monkey, you can check out landmonkey.blogspot.ca or .com, both work. And that's our blog. You can search Land Monkey on YouTube to see any of our hundreds of amazing videos of our geocaching adventures with GPSRs. Or if you want to follow us on social media, it's at LandMonkeyGC.
Nice. Well, Daryl, I'd like to get a blood pressure reading on you now that the episode is over.
Well, it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
Okay.
There's still time.
We could still screw this up, Scott. What do you think?
Or the Googles.
Well, next week, right here on GeoGearHeads, we're going to talk about 3D printed caches with Antaeus and C. Nelson. The week after that, on September 29th, we're doing puzzles again with Jennifer of Team AJK. October 6th, we're doing a randomized episode. I love those. October 13th, which isn't a Friday, but it's a 13th, we're doing road caching with the Land Monkeys.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more in the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Krent Stoffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2016 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.